It's really about the leader saying, this is what we want, and this is the culture I'm trying to set. So when we say 5 Year 5, we say, think about the 5 words that you most hope that teachers will use to describe work this year and to describe your school and your school culture.
Hello there. My name is Monica Burns, and welcome to today's bonus episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. If you're used to joining me on Tuesdays for new episodes, you are in for a treat. This is a special bonus episode of the podcast in partnership with Alpaca. Just like on Tuesdays, these bonus episodes are designed to give you ideas you can try yourself, share with a colleague, or bookmark for later in the school year. If we mention something you'd like to check out, you'll find the link to it in the show notes. So don't forget to head to my website, easyedtechpodcast.com, for all of the links and resources from today's episode. This episode is sponsored by Alpaca, the teacher well-being platform designed for schools. If you're a school leader who wants to support your staff without adding more to your plate, Alpaca is your new favorite tool. Their 2-minute semantic pulse check-ins help you understand how your teachers are doing. No sliding scales or scores, just meaningful words like valued, disconnected, joyful, or stretched thin. Plus, Alpaca's free resource library is packed with hundreds of free, practical, ready-to-use tools for recognition, connection, and culture building. So you don't have to start from scratch. Learn more and get started at getalpaca.com/easyedtech. That's G-E-T, Alpaca, ALPACA.com/easyedtech. And listeners get 15% off when they come on for their first school year. Today's episode is titled Data-Driven Ways to Boost Teacher Engagement This Year, a bonus episode with Alpaca. And I chatted with Karen Borchert, the founder and CEO of Alpaca. I had the chance to meet with the team at the FETC conference in Orlando this January and see Alpaca Pulse, that's the teacher feedback tool we'll talk about in today's episode, and hear all the ways they are helping school leaders boost teacher engagement with big and little wins over the course of the school year. Let's dive into the conversation. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to talk about teacher engagement today, teacher well-being, all sorts of things related to this topic. But before we get in, Karen, can you share with us a bit, what is your role in education? What does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's really fun to be here. So my name is Karen Borchert. I'm the founder of a company called Alpaca, and we focus specifically and fully on the idea of employee experience or well-being for educators. So I got my start as an educator and as a high school English teacher, and then moved kind of quickly into an entrepreneurial path in my career. And I spent a lot of my career in the realm of employee engagement. So how to recruit and retain and engage our employees. And when I started Alpaca a few years ago, I really wanted to bring a lot of what I had learned in the private sector around creating and developing great teams over into where it makes sense in the education sector. So that's our focus. That's what we do. We spend all of our days with educators and principals and school leaders from around the country, and we're learning something every single day. So that's what we do.
Well, I'm so excited to chat with you today because, I had a peek at the app, took a look behind the scenes, the platform earlier this year with one of your team members. And cool. So, this idea of teacher well-being, school leadership, data-informed culture building, right? All that we're talking about today, you've collected over, just oodles of data on teacher experiences. So what is something, maybe what's one surprising or overlooked trend that school leaders should be paying attention to right now?
Yeah, great question. We didn't know what we were going to find either, honestly. So this is our first full year of really collecting the kind of first person data from teachers about how they're feeling at work. And we collect our information through just a really quick check-in. And what we do is we actually ask teachers to tell us the words that they would use to describe work. So we don't say, hey, how are you doing on a scale of 1 to 5? We instead say, hey, what words would you use to describe work? And we didn't know what we would get. But we got more than 100,000 words that teachers use to describe work. And we have learned so much from that. I think the most surprising trend, honestly, is that there's so much positive sentiment in addition to the challenges that are the things that make the news, right? Like we will, if you ask, how are teachers feeling? Everybody will say out loud to you what you hear in the news, which is, exhausted, fatigued, burned out, those sorts of words. And you do see those words. Those do show up for our teams and for educators everywhere, but they are also alongside some really amazing words. Like two of our most popular words in our top 5 for the year are committed and supported. And that's really cool to see. You also see a lot of teachers talking about feeling like they're progressing or learning, which, of course they are because they're teachers and they're learners, but they're also, I think the idea that educators are feeling like they are learning and growing and progressing in their careers is really cool to see. So I think honestly, just the mix of positive, the mix in there of a lot of positive sentiment and positive feedback is really, really, really powerful.
I love those words that you shared. And, as someone who went through a doctoral program with plenty of questions to have to ask people and coding to have to do based on their responses, right? I was so fascinated when I got a look at how you all collect this data in just such an organic way, right? Like choose those words and right, like you said, the learning or the committed or the supported, right? It really, even those one words on their own just paint such a picture of what someone's experience is like. And, I'm curious as you have gone through collecting information and talking to educators and school leaders, why do you think small everyday leadership habits like these check-ins or moments of recognition have such an outsized impact on school culture?
Yeah, great. That's such a great question. We call them at our place, we call them little wins. And they're just the little things that school leaders are doing. I think honestly that I think that when the things that we do are these kind of big programs or these big strategies or initiatives, sometimes they can feel a little bit contrived or a little bit, kind of they're so programmatic and they're kind of trying to be all things to all people that they can feel not quite as genuine or as authentic. And I think those little wins, those little things end up creating these moments of authenticity and these moments of care and these moments of support that actually feel so much more personal. And I think that's really what it's often about for teams, is that teams they're not like, oh gosh, nobody's, come around and thrown us a pizza party lately. It's more like, this person gets me. This person understands me. They remembered that, I was out last week and they said, welcome back when I got back today. Those are really powerful moments.
That's such an interesting point because I think, we've all been in situations where there's been maybe like this larger praise or recognition. And that's nice, right? To have like something that's happening for everyone and you're there and a part of it. But it feels very different, even if those moments are much, much smaller, right? When someone has that personal connection, when someone it just feels like the effort is there in a different sort of way with these little wins that you talk about, which, I think is a really interesting thing for a school leader to consider, as they're moving into a new school year and maybe thinking about why something big they did might not have been as successful as they thought, right? It's these little moments that are what people often remember, right? Or call back to. So, what are some practical examples you've seen where schools turned the feedback they got from their staff into real positive change?
Yeah. Yeah. We get to hear so many good ones. So one of them that I love, one of the things that a team decided to do to kind of build team unity and also to kind of create this culture of care within their school. They did this very simple thing. They took their entire student list and they printed every student's name as a label. And then they put in their staff meetings, they put out a stack of cards and envelopes. And at the beginning of every staff meeting, they have hundreds of kids in their school. And at the beginning of every staff meeting, every staff member takes one label off of the sheet and puts it on an envelope. And then they sit down and they write a note to that kid. And then the principal sends all of those home. And what they don't have to have a whole crazy, spreadsheet and a whole system for it and assignments of who's doing what. They literally just grab a label and put it on the envelope. And what they know is that throughout the year, all of those kids are going to get a letter home about something awesome that they did. All of those kids are going to have somebody that recognized them personally and said something to them personally, which means so much more, right? Than even, kind of winning, something in the school or something like that. It's like, that's great, but those things are great, but that personal touch is huge. And they did it so simply. Like they just spend 5 minutes at the beginning of their staff meeting, writing handwritten notes to kids. And like, you can imagine how that feels for the team too, right? Like the team then also just feels this culture of care and like they're doing it, but it was super easy and honestly like cost no more than some note cards and some labels. So that's one that I love that I was like, I'm taking that one home with me. That's really cool. The other one, I just talked to a principal who did this. Well, there's a couple. So there's a principal that does this. She's been doing this for years. When she has a team member who has something going on in their life, like, they lost a parent or they had like something really hard in their life. One of the things that she does, obviously, she takes care of them in the moment. She also puts it on her calendar with an annual reminder. And so a year later, she will go to that teacher and say, hey, I bet that this might be kind of a hard week for you. I know that, you lost your mom a year ago. These teachers are like, unbelievably floored by that care and by that compassion and by that personal knowledge of them, which I think is like such a cool thing. That's not coming from the data, saying, okay, let's, we heard the data and let's do this. But it is just kind of a practice on the principal side that is really, again, free, takes like almost no time and just pops up a year later to help them be great. And they do it for celebrations, if somebody gets married, she has all their birthdays, she has everybody's stuff on one calendar that just surfaces her a little way to connect with them almost every day, which I love that. And then there was one that came from the data. There was one that we heard and we loved where the teachers were saying, we need more celebrations. We need to have a little bit more fun. Like that's what their data was saying. And so a principal said, okay, we're going to do something really fun. And they did this actually as part of their end of school year last year, but they're doing it again this year, which I absolutely love. And they usually have all their kids go out kind of different doors, depending on if they're taking the bus or riding in a car on the way home. And she said, no, on the last day of school, that's not what we're going to do. So she has all of the kids come to the main hallway. She has all of the teachers walk out of the school and make a tunnel down like kind of out of the school. And they do this huge like scream tunnel and like party and like it's like hugging and crying and everything as part of like the way that they do the farewell. And she was like, the kids obviously love it. The families love it. Yeah. She's like, but our teachers love it because they get to like have this celebratory moment with each other right at the end of the school year. And I was like, okay, I'm writing that down. That is an amazing idea. So yeah, there's some good ones. We hear awesome ones all the time at our place. So yeah, there's some good ones.
Those are amazing. And just, for as much as right, there may be things on everyone's plate. Like these are doable things, right? These are things that you're tying back to like the moments that are already happening. I think that's what can be really powerful. I mean, I love just how these are budget friendly strategies that you shared too, because I think that's always something people are mindful of. But just that idea that, people are probably more likely to show up to that faculty meeting on time if they know the first 5 minutes are going to be dedicated to this like almost centering activity of writing these letters that have a big impact, right? People are counting down to an event where everyone kind of comes together in the hallway to send everyone off, right, for the summertime. And for someone who, and I try and do this with the little reminders on my phone, like you mentioned, like, don't forget to check in with that person, or like, they just told me they had this doctor's appointment, like on Thursday, like make sure to check in with them, right? Because they shared that information, whether they meant it for a reason or not, right? So just these little things that you can build into your regular practice can have such an impact. And so, you talked earlier about collecting words and gathering teacher feedback. So can you tell us a bit about how does Alpaca work? Like how could a school leader get started using it if they're like listening to us chat today and they're curious? What does this look like in practice?
Yeah. Well, the easiest way to get started is our resource library. So it's full of what we call, little wins. And it's free. It's 100% free, and it's at our website at getalpaca.com. But our resource library, it's super fun. It's all things that are built by and for educators and education leaders, and they're all these same ideas, like just really fun ways to build school culture, ideas for like icebreakers for your staff meeting, or really meaningful stuff around like kind of how to personally recognize staff, how to make a monthly one-on-one happen with every staff member on your team. That can feel really impossible to a school leader, but it's definitely possible. And all of those resources, they all come with all of the stuff, like anything that's printable or anything that's part of it. It's all kind of bundled in one PDF. And like I said, it's totally free. So that's a super easy way to get started and just kind of get to know what we're all about and how we think about school culture. And then the other two things that we do, and it's kind of perfect timing, gearing up for the next school year ahead. We do what we call Alpaca Pulse, which is a little tiny check-in. It's a 1 to 2 minute survey that educators take. It's completely anonymous, and it's on their own phones or their own devices. And it's really just a quick check-in. It's a little tiny check-in to say, hey, how are you feeling? How are you doing at work? What would help you the most right now? And then that data is instantly available to the principal to understand, hey, these are the words our team is using to describe work, and this is how they're feeling, and this is what they need. And you can act on it really quickly. So we do that. That's a lot of fun. And then we also have what we call our celebration kits. That's the most fun thing that we do. We're kind of obsessed with school supplies around here. So we actually create like a little care package. We release a different one every month. And our celebration kits have 5 of them in there, plus an activity of a fun way to recognize 5 people in your building. That comes to the principal every month. And so it's totally ready to go. It's like turnkey teacher recognition. So we can do any of those things or all of those things with folks. But like I said, the easiest way to get started is check out all of the free resources, because they're a lot of fun. And then you can kind of mix and match all of the rest of what we do as you wish.
As I mentioned earlier, I saw the Alpaca Pulse in action, just this way to collect some really quick, actionable information, right? We talk so much about formative assessment data for students, right? And collecting info all the time and all the things that go into a classroom teacher's life. But for them to get a chance to share, right, with a school leader who's going to take action for them, I think is really powerful, too. So as we're, in this kind of summertime reflection and looking forward towards the next school year, what's one mindset shift you hope school leaders will adopt to better support their teams?
Yeah. I think so. There's something that we think about with this, and we call it Find Your Five. And so the idea is really the mindset shift, or the idea is really to be very intentional about the culture you want, and the culture, because there's lots of positive school cultures, but they're defined in different ways, or they have different words to describe them. So if you say, I really want my school culture to be ambitious, learning, growing, achieving, those are the words that you really want to hear in the hallways, right? Whereas there are some leaders who say, I really want my teachers to feel supported, cared for, loved, really and really kind of embraced in that way. And both of those are really great school cultures, but it's really about the leader saying, this is what we want, and this is the culture I'm trying to set. So when we say Find Your Five, we say, think about the 5 words that you most hope that teachers will use to describe work this year, and to describe your school and your school culture, and then, write them down, put them on the, put them on the wall. We have like stickers with all the words that have those, but it can be a really powerful exercise just to know those 5 words or 3 words, whatever is most meaningful to you, to know this is how I want teachers to feel at work. And then ask yourself the question, okay, what do we as a team, because it's everyone's job, not just the leader's job. What do we as a team need to do in order to make those words come true? So those are the things that we think that's a great summer project for leaders and educators. You can also, as an educator, you can do that for your classroom. Like, what do you want your kids to say about your classroom and about your culture in your classroom? And then what do you as an educator want to do to get there?
Yeah. And that's, perfect. Like we mentioned, for summertime to set the stage for the upcoming school year, but it's also something you could do mid-year, right? If you need that reset or you're ready to reflect, right, on how the first few months of the school year have gone. So I think that's just such a powerful thing, a great exercise for someone to do maybe themselves and then with a wider team, right? To make sure everyone is really aligned. So with the little wins you mentioned earlier, Karen, right? It seems so doable, right? The resources that you all have related to that. If someone's listening today, if a school leader's listening and maybe has 15 minutes this week, right, to make a meaningful impact on their team, how should they spend it?
Ooh, gosh, that's such a fun question. Okay. I think, I honestly think that handwritten notes are one of the most powerful things. And one of the things that is a really fun, I don't know, it's a very powerful little thing to do, but asking other educators, hey, tell me about an interaction you've had with a member of our team that really made a difference in your year this year, kind of looking back. Ask the other team members that, and then say that to the teacher. Say, you know what, I heard from Miss Burns that you were incredibly patient with a couple of her students that were really having a hard day, and that you kind of stepped in and brought an additional level of support for her. And I just want to tell you that, I really appreciate you helping Miss Burns, and I know she appreciated it too. That thing that happens when somebody hears that somebody else said something nice about them is so powerful. We love that kind of compliment chain. But that putting that into a handwritten note, listening and hearing what teachers are saying and then putting that into a handwritten note for someone is just, it's so powerful and can be really the difference in kind of how somebody's going into the summer or how somebody's coming into the next school year. I think that can be really powerful.
Yeah, just that idea of the compliment chain. It's not just something maybe you notice because maybe you've noticed a lot of things, but something you heard someone else say or heard someone else share. And it may be, right, that you put that little 10-minute, calendar block on a, Thursday at lunch or whatever it is, right? And just say like, who's my person, right? And one of the things I like about that too, and we've talked with different educators who have, gratitude practices, right? Or looking for small moments and using, different tools to do so. It's just that idea that you're also looking for those moments throughout the week to share, right? It kind of changes your outlook. Like you're looking for the good stuff all week. And now you have this moment where you're going to share the best one, right? Or the one that, is most needed perhaps. So absolutely. What a great idea. So this has been so actionable, Karen, and I think just such a great way for people to think forward into the upcoming school year. And I, of course, will link out to all the things for people to check out Alpaca. But for someone who's, on the go, maybe making the mental bookmark of where to follow up, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about your work?
Yeah, you can find us at getalpaca.com. That's the easiest way to get to us. And if you Google, Alpaca teacher wellbeing, you'll find it. So that's it. You'll get to it quickly. That way, we're the only ones with that mascot for this kind of work. So that's the best way to find us is at getalpaca.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today, for sharing all of this with listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
It was lots of fun chatting with Karen today, so let's finish up this episode, like we always do, with a few key points to help make this EdTech easy. Small, authentic actions build stronger school culture. teacher feedback often reveals surprising, positive sentiment. Personalized recognition matters more than big programs. Little wins like handwritten notes create lasting impact. Remember, you can find the show notes and the full list of resources from today's episode, including all the ways to connect with a team at Alpaca, by heading to easyedtechpodcast.com. A big thank you to Alpaca for sponsoring this episode. If you want to lead with more confidence, boost teacher morale, and build a culture where educators feel seen and supported, check out getalpaca.com/easyedtech. And don't forget, Easy EdTech podcast listeners get 15% off when they come on for their first school year. If you're listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or maybe another favorite app, don't forget to hit the follow button. When you follow along with the podcast, each new episode will download for you automatically so you don't miss a thing. And if you have a moment and are feeling extra helpful today, please leave a rating or review for the podcast. It helps other educators find episodes like this one when they're searching for topics like EdTech or teacher engagement in their podcast app. Have a great week and check back on Tuesday morning for next week's new episode.